Hey, it's Scott Bertram, and I want to tell you about something new from Hillsdale College. It's the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. Check it out right now. Go to podcast.hillsdale.edu. The Hillsdale College Podcast Network offers free nationwide access to all of Hillsdale's podcast content. That means shows like the Hillsdale Dialogues, the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, the Larry P. Arnn Show, and now, new, the Imprimis Podcast. You can listen wherever you are and whenever you want, and it's always free. Find out more about all of our shows at podcast.hillsdale.edu. You can subscribe to any program with new episodes delivered right to your device. Or sign up for the super feed. That means you get access to absolutely everything posted on the site. If you want to come close to stepping inside a Hillsdale College classroom, well, the Hillsdale College Podcast Network is for you. Get informed and get entertained at podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Bubble, a Hillsdale College Career Services production where we take you outside the classroom and into the professional arena to bring you special tips and tricks from recent alumni in all areas of practice. This show is part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. You can find more episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. I'm Lauren Scott, and joining me today is Caleb Bowers. Hi, Caleb. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. First of all, why don't you tell us where you work and what your position is?
Yeah, I'm a mission software engineer at Anduril Industries, which is a defense tech company. So I do like back-end software engineering.
All right. And so what does a day in the life look like at your job? Does it kind of vary from day to day, or is it pretty much the same thing?
No, it varies from day to day. Like some days are more meeting heavy, other days are more programming heavy. Like I'll interact with other people on my team to try to like set goals for the week. Like what are we prioritizing? And then if there's like a deployment coming up for the software for the system, like we'll be planning for that. Other days are like working on the actual code features that I'm adding to the system or to what the customer wants.
How did you know that you wanted to go into computer science? Was this something that you've known for a while, or did you decide early on in your career?
Yeah, not really. I came to Hillsdale wanting to do math and physics with like a long-term goal of like being a physics academic or physics researcher. And then I did a physics research experience I did take some computer programming courses early on, but I did a physics research experience and it was like pretty dull, not very interesting. And then like that was kind of my understanding of like realizing I don't really want to do physics long term. And so then I switched to just a physics minor, just did computational math, which doesn't exist anymore at Hillsdale, but it's now the applied math major, which was some computer programming courses and math classes. And so then I just learned programming from that, and then like did some internships for the Navy when I was in college in undergrad, and then kind of found my way into it through there. It was like kind of a happy accident. But yeah, it was more of like I have this ability, these skills, this like I like solving problems, I like dealing with like math things, and computer science is a way to apply that in a way that like I hadn't experienced elsewhere.
For Hillsdale students or alumni who are interested in pursuing a career in computer science, what would you recommend to them? Is there a specific internship they could take, or job offerings, or a major or minor that they should be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, the Hillsdale now has the minor in computer science. That's helpful. I actually think it's never been a better time to pursue this. Like when I graduated in 2015, some companies wouldn't even interview you for programming jobs if you didn't have a computer science degree, and now that's just like not the case. And you can also go online, and there's boot camps that are very affordable. You can get coding certificates online. I think like, Hillsdale offers like the basic foundations. Like it's all math at the end of the day that's driving these computers. So I really recommend studying math, the applied math or physics. doing that, and then you can teach yourself online how to code. Like you can do these boot camps. There's certificates you can get that'll teach you kind of like the things that math is not going to cover, the more applied aspects of this.
From the time you graduated Hillsdale to where you are now in your career, what happened in between that? Give us kind of the general timeline of positions you held or internships or jobs that you had.
Yeah, so I interned at the Navy between my junior and senior year, and that was in this like desolate area of California. So I wasn't like too keen on going back to there. So I took a job at this medical software company called Epic, and I was only there like 6 months. It wasn't quite what I wanted to do. It was a lot of like customer support. So it was a lot of like email, like focusing on like these like quick problems that needed to be fixed. There was a lot of like user error. And so then I ended up going back to California as a software engineer at that naval base. Worked on a pretty cool project for the Harrier jet. They don't use it anymore, but it was like this last like modernization effort to make it like survive until the F-35 took over. And then from there, a friend of mine at Hillsdale, his dad was in the Navy, and this guy he worked with at the Navy reached out to me, and I started working for the Navy as a government civilian in Maryland. And that was on this project that ran a mathematical simulation modeling software for underwater explosives. So it like modeled the fluid dynamics of an underwater explosion, and that was like for torpedoes and a couple other things. And so I did that for about a year, and I thought I wanted to go do research, so I was looking at ways to go to grad school for free. And I ended up applying to the Naval Research Laboratory, which has some pretty great graduate programs that'll fund your education. Got a job there just as like a computer scientist. Started taking programs at Georgetown in their master's in computer science, and then I did research at the Naval Research Laboratory for like 5 years in wireless networking algorithms, routing algorithms, topology algorithms, and then got a grad degree in that time. And so that's like brings us to like 2022. Thought about doing a PhD, ended up deciding not to. Didn't really want to do research the rest of my life. So then I switched back to more software engineering at Anduril, where I get to work on things that get used very quickly, like solve real world problems very fast.
I know that you were a a research assistant at Wayne State University after graduating. And so
deep cut.
Yeah. And so what would you recommend doing something like that, or did that open up some opportunities for you?
Yeah, so that was actually in between my sophomore and junior year. Like both math and physics, and I think even chemistry and biology, like a lot of the sciences have these things called research experience for undergrads or REUs. And that's a good way to like get some research exposure. And it like opens you up to the world of research, like figuring out like what that looks like. It can also be like pretty isolated to like a very specific research area. So I was like researching the decaying futuristics of this particle called a meson. And that's pretty like down in the weeds of physics. And so that wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But I highly recommend it. Like it is a great experience. They like pay pretty well as far as like summer internships go. And it's like a way you like get an exposure to academia and like how bigger research universities work that you don't really get at Hillsdale, at least at that time. So I highly recommend it.
How was the transition from being a Hillsdale student to a Georgetown student?
I didn't find grad school that hard. The weird thing about graduate school, at least as a master's degree, is research is what drives graduate school. And so the classes to me were not that interesting because like most students are there for their thesis. The master's degree is there to like kind of give you the tools you need. But if it's not rooted in your research problem, you're probably not going to find that very interesting. And so I found it like very easy. Like it was pretty like seamless. Like Hillsdale was harder in some ways. The teaching was much better. But again, that's like, Hillsdale's optimizing for teaching. Georgetown there was optimizing for research. And so it was just like a different experience. I felt it was like pretty seamless though.
As a math major, are there any professors that you had that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, all of them were great. I think Dr. Webster, Dr. Gabler, Dr. Trelaw, Dr. Murphy, they were all fantastic professors. Like, I cannot say enough good things about the math department.
How do you think that the core curriculum at Hillsdale has had an influence on you, either as a person or in your career?
Yeah, I thought about doing a PhD in kind of the intersection of philosophy and computer science. And that ended up not working out, but that's like kind of the things that I think Hillsdale equips you to consider is like you're not just looking at these things in isolation, like how do I build an interesting system? You're more interested in like how do these systems like enable human beings to live, or like how do they impact people's lives? Because that's like everything we've been thinking about when you go to Hillsdale is like, what does it mean to live a good life? What is a good life? What are these things that like when you go about your day to day, like how does this impact your attention, and what does that mean for what you're prioritizing in your life? So, I mean, it was huge. Like, I just like am able to speak intelligently about a lot of different things, which I don't think is always true. Like, I looked at doing an engineering, transferring an engineering program in like a Case Western Reserve University. And like, if you're doing engineering, you don't even have to do an English class. And so the things that you get at Hillsdale are just like they make you like a better person, and I think that translates to you like being better at your job. Like you can do a lot of different things.
Tell me more about your internship with the Navy. How did you go about securing that?
Yeah, I Googled applied math internships and stumbled upon this thing called the Naval Research Enterprise Internship Program, which is like privately funded by this nonprofit, and it puts students throughout the entire, like all the naval bases in America, working on different problems. I worked on this like modeling and simulation effort for this long-range anti-ship missile, which I believe is somewhere in the Navy's arsenal. But yeah, that was like, I applied to it. I ended up not getting it at first. And so I was like scrambling. I was going to go back working at the cardboard box factory I worked at after my freshman year. And then I was an alternate and got selected like a month before, like, you know, some kid probably got an internship at Google and was like, I'm going to go do that instead of the Navy, and ended up being great for me. Yeah, it was awesome. It was a really cool experience to be able to do that when you're like 21 and you're, you know, around jets all day. And it was really cool.
Is computer science something that kind of changes over the years, or what you've been working with, has that stayed kind of consistent as far as what you do day to day?
No, so like software engineering can remain like fairly consistent, like what you're trying to build. The tools you're using, the technologies you're using will change. Like research also is something that changes like pretty quickly compared to other disciplines. Like, you know, when I was in undergrad, cloud computing was like everything everyone was researching. And then 5 years ago, it was like all cryptography and like cybersecurity stuff. And then now a lot of like AI, ML stuff. So it does like change pretty quickly. I do think, yeah, like day to day, like engineering, you're going to encounter a lot of new technologies that you'll have to like stay abreast of. But yeah, so it is like a pretty fast paced environment.
What sort of things were you involved in while you were a Hillsdale student?
I mean, the kind of like basic ones like the math honorary, science honorary, Society of Physics students. I did almost got a minor in religion as well, so that was like something I emphasized towards the end of my time at Hillsdale, and that was like a hugely rewarding thing. Did intervarsity, yeah, played intramural sports. It was like pretty, yeah, just like a standard Hillsdale experience.
What is something that Hillsdale students should take advantage of that you found to be very helpful?
I think like you should not worry too much about specializing too much. Like I loved that I got to take these religion classes, and then, you know, I'll have that for the rest of my life. Like I now like work with computers, but like I don't get to go learn, you know, the New Testament in the way that I did when I was here. And so I think like taking advantage of these like curiosities you have while you're here, like really engage with that. Like you know, you're going to be tempted to like double or triple major, but like just major in one thing and then like take a lot of classes and other things that you're interested in. Take a drawing class if you want to, like things like that. Because you're never going to have the same amount of like freedom and opportunity as you do here when you leave.
Do you see yourself ever seeking other career opportunities in this realm, or do you think you're happy where you're at and you're just going to see where that takes you?
I would say like a little bit of both. Like, and I'm really enjoying the job and role, but kind of open to working in kind of new opportunities. Like I have a couple ideas like on the back burner, thinking through things. So yeah, I think like the nice thing about this is it enables you to like pivot to different domains.
And then what is the work environment like for someone who has a position like you? Is it like an office job where you go in every day, or is there an option to have it remote?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. I go in about 3 to 4 days a week. Some weeks every day, other weeks like fewer days. And some weeks I'm traveling. But yeah, it's pretty flexible. Like that's the nice thing about Anduril. Like very like large amounts of autonomy. They really trust you as the worker to like do your job, like do it as best as you can, and like get the product out the door.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
You've been listening to Beyond the Bubble, a podcast by Hillsdale College Career Services. This show is part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. You can find more episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. I'm Lauren Scott, and have a blessed day.